This video is about revealing the secret tactics of American commanders. Subscribe for more. In the shadows of history, whispers of secrets long kept echoed through the halls of military academies and the dusty archives of war rooms. The year was 1944, and Europe was engulfed in chaos. The Third Reich's grip on the continent was tightening, yet a glimmer of hope shone from the Allied forces, led by the United States. Among the ranks of American commanders was General William Wild Bill Donovan, a man whose reputation for audacious tactics preceded him. Known for his unconventional approaches, he operated with an unyielding desire to outsmart his German adversaries. Donovan stood in the dimly lit command tent in the heart of Normandy, tracing the lines of a map strewn with pins and notes. His blue eyes gleamed with determination as he plotted the next phase of the invasion. Around him, a coterie of officers intelligent, driven, and well acquainted with the horrors of war leaned in, eager to hear his latest scheme. Among them was Lieutenant Colonel James Sully Sullivan, an expert in intelligence operations and Donovan's right hand. Sully, once a humble codebreaker, now roamed the depths of enemy strategy, unraveling the tapestry of German military movements with the precision of a master craftsman. "Sir, we need to exploit the gaps in their lines," he urged, his voice steady yet urgent. Donovan nodded, considering this suggestion while the weight of 1,000,000 lives hung in the balance. Yet, unbeknownst to them all, a shadow loomed. In the heart of Berlin, a cunning German strategist named General Hans Richter was devising his own plan. With the Allies closing in, Richter was determined to turn the tide of war in favor of the Reich. He had caught wind of Donovan's reputation and had made it his mission to decipher the American commander's tactics. The German High Command had entrusted him with safeguarding the fatherland, and failure was not an option. As Donovan strategized, whispers of betrayal and espionage swirled in the air. A mole within the Allied command had been feeding information to the Germans, and their next move could be catastrophic. Donovan was unaware of the insidious threat lurking in the shadows. The stakes were rising, and time was running short. The clock was ticking toward D-Day, where sheer might would clash against cunning deception. Across the Atlantic, in the newly established State of Israel, the echoes of the Holocaust still resonated deeply. The newly formed Israeli Defense Forces, led by the seasoned tactician Moshe Dayan, prepared for the inevitable conflicts that lay ahead. Dayan understood the importance of intelligence and strategy, having witnessed the dire consequences of underestimating an enemy. The scars of war were fresh, and the need for a secure homeland resonated in the hearts of every Israeli soldier. Dayan gazed out at the troops training in the arid landscape, the sun beating down upon them. He was determined to forge a formidable fighting force, one that would not only defend its borders, but also fight against the remnants of tyranny that had caused unimaginable suffering. As he reviewed plans for a joint operation with U. forces, he couldn't shake the feeling that the lessons of the past were crucial for their survival. Back in Europe, the tension escalated as Donovan's forces prepared to launch their assault. The atmosphere was electric, filled with the anticipation of battle. Soldiers moved with urgency, checking their gear and recounting their last goodbyes. The Allies were ready to breach the heavily fortified Atlantic Wall, and it would take more than brute force to succeed. Donovan's unconventional tactics would be tested like never before. As dawn broke on June 6, 1944, the sky was ablaze with the dawn of a new chapter. The roar of planes filled the air as the first wave of paratroopers descended upon Normandy. Donovan watched from the command center, his heart racing. Each one of those soldiers had families, dreams, and lives they had left behind. Yet here they were, poised to face the German war machine. "Remember, men, the key is to stay unpredictable," Donovan shouted, his voice carrying over the cacophony of war. "We strike fast, hit hard, and retreat before they can retaliate. Trust your training, trust each other." As the soldiers leaped into battle, Sully hurried to Donovan's side, briefing him on the latest intelligence reports. "Sir, we have confirmation that they were expecting a landing at Utah Beach, not here," he relayed, urgency etched across his face. "We can use this to our advantage. If we can create a diversion, we might split their forces." Donovan's mind raced. The Germans were prepared for a fight, but they were also confident overconfident. "We'll hit them where they least expect it. Prepare the men for a flanking maneuver. We'll create chaos, draw them away from their stronghold, and then strike deep into their defenses." Meanwhile, deep within the German command center, Richter monitored the situation with a grim expression. His intel had been solid, but the Americans had a knack for surprise. "We must reinforce the beaches," he barked, but a nagging doubt crept into his mind. The Allies were cunning, and they had a reputation for deception. Victor's instincts told him that Donovan would try something different. "Send scouts to gather real-time intelligence," he ordered. "If they intend to deceive us, we cannot fall for their tricks." As chaos erupted on the beaches of Normandy, Donovan's forces advanced, launching grenades into enemy bunkers and engaging in brutal close-quarters combat. The sound of gunfire echoed through the air as American soldiers fought valiantly against the entrenched German defenders. They were not just fighting for victory, they were fighting for freedom, for a world free of tyranny. In the midst of the fray, Sully found himself face to face with a German soldier. Time slowed as they both raised their weapons, but Sully's training kicked in. With a swift movement, he disarmed the man and subdued him, dragging him behind cover. He demanded, panically seeing the German SIs. "France," the soldier stuttered, fear etched into his features. "Please, I don't want to fight." Sully hesitated. The war had turned men into monsters, but here was a boy, a victim of a regime that cared little for his life. "If you tell me what you know about their defenses, I'll spare you," Sully said, the weight of his words hanging in the air. France nodded, desperation evident. "They have a weakness in the eastern bunker. If you can strike hard, you may break their lines." The revelation sent a jolt through Sully. "Thank you," he breathed, pushing the boy away, a fleeting moment of compassion amidst the carnage. As the battle raged on, Donovan's gambit was beginning to pay off. The German forces were stretched thin, their attention divided. But Richter was not one to underestimate his opponents. The realization came too late. He knew Donovan would exploit any advantage, and now, with the Americans advancing, the tide was beginning to turn. With the sun setting over the battlefield, the shadows of war crept in, marking a pivotal moment in history. The outcome of the invasion would determine the fate of Europe, and the mysterious tactics of American commanders would either secure victory or lead to their downfall. Donovan pressed on, his eyes focused on the horizon, knowing that the next move could spell the difference between victory and catastrophe. As night fell, the air crackled with tension, and the world held its breath. The battle for Normandy was just the beginning, but the secrets of war were far from over. What lay ahead would not only test the mettle of the soldiers, but reveal the intricate web of espionage, betrayal, and courage that defined the very fabric of history. With the dawn of a new day on the horizon, would the secrets of American commanders unravel, or would they find a way to outwit the darkness that threatened to consume them? The answer loomed, and with it, the fate of nations hung in the balance. As dawn broke over the beaches of Normandy, the chaos of battle erupted anew. Donovan's forces surged forward, taking advantage of the confusion wrought by their flanking maneuver. The cries of the wounded mingled with the thunder of artillery, painting a grim portrait of war. Amidst the noise, General Donovan remained resolute, his mind racing with tactical possibilities. "Push forward, don't let them regroup," he shouted, rallying his men. Every ounce of training and preparation was being put to the test. As American soldiers climbed the bluffs with grit and determination, the sight of the German bunkers loomed ominously ahead. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Colonel Sullivan, now armed with the intelligence gathered from the captured German soldier, moved swiftly to exploit the weakness in the eastern bunker. "This is our chance," Sullivan called, gesturing to a squad nearby. "We need a diversion to draw their fire." With swift efficiency, they set up a series of explosives near the western bunker, intending to create an illusion of a concentrated attack. As the charges detonated, dust and debris filled the air, masking their true intent. German defenders scrambled, their eyes drawn toward the explosions, leaving their eastern flank exposed. "Sully, now is the time," Donovan shouted as he caught sight of the German forces shifting. "Move your team." Sully nodded, adrenaline surging through his veins. He led his men through the chaos, darting from cover to cover, the gunfire echoing in their ears. Every soldier knew that the battle was not just for land, it was for a future free of oppression. The stakes were unfathomably high. Back in Berlin, General Richter's frustration mounted as he received reports of the growing chaos on the beaches. "Their tactics are unpredictable," he fumed, slamming his fist on the table. "What are they planning? We cannot let this stand." He paced the dimly lit room, his mind racing. He ordered reconnaissance units to send more scouts to gather real-time intel. "We need to know where the Americans are striking next. We cannot allow them to gain a foothold." As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the fight for Normandy roared on. Sullivan's team reached the eastern bunker, where they positioned themselves, weapons at the ready. "On my mark," he whispered, their breaths shallow with anticipation. Just then, a nerve-wracking moment unfolded. A shout came from the bunker, and a German officer emerged, barking orders to his men. Do not let them breach our defenses. He had a commanding presence, but Sullivan understood that fear could be a powerful motivator. Sullivan shouted, and with that command, they launched an assault on the bunker. Grenades flew, and gunfire erupted as American soldiers stormed the entrance. The element of surprise was on their side, and for a moment, the world shrank to the cacophony of battle. Within moments, chaos engulfed the bunker. Sullivan took the lead, moving through the narrow corridors, clearing rooms and dispatching enemies with a practiced efficiency. Each victory sparked a flicker of hope as he remembered the faces of those waiting at home. "We need to take control," Sullivan shouted, his voice cutting through the din. They burst into a central command room, finding themselves face to face with a small group of German soldiers. The air was thick with tension and uncertainty. One soldier dropped his weapon, eyes wide with fear. "Please, don't shoot. We don't want to fight." The sincerity in his voice momentarily caught Sullivan off guard. He saw a boy, much like himself, trapped in a war not of his making. Sullivan demanded, his heart torn between compassion and the harsh realities of war. "We have heavy artillery further back," the soldier said, trembling. "But if you push through here, you can cut off our supply routes. That is our weakness." A desperation radiated from him, and Sullivan hesitated, contemplating mercy amidst the chaos. "Get out of here," Sullivan ordered, dismissing the boy. The soldier fled, and Sullivan turned back to his team. "Let us move. We need to cut off that artillery." And meanwhile, Donovan, aware of the shifting dynamics, coordinated a broader assault. He had stationed additional waves of troops ready for deployment. "We regaining momentum. We can let up," he encouraged. As the American forces pushed deeper into German territory, the tide of battle began to favor them. Reports of success flooded in, each victory a testament to the cunning strategies Donovan had crafted. Yet, as the sun dipped lower, the German High Command, with Richter at the helm, prepared to unleash their counteroffensive. "We must regroup and hold the line." Richter barked, his voice steely. He understood that the Americans had momentum, but he was determined to snuff it out. Reinforce the northern flank to anticipate their next move. Back at the beach, Sullivan's team pushed out from the bunker, adrenaline still coursing through their veins. They coordinated a rapid assault against the artillery placements, the goal to silence the German guns that had wreaked havoc on the landing forces. "We've got to move fast. The LL regroup soon," Sullivan urged, rallying his soldiers. As they reached the artillery positions, they found the Germans scrambling to establish defenses. The moment called for decisive action. "On my count, then," Sullivan shouted, and they opened fire, the air thick with the smoke and confusion of battle. Just as victory seemed within reach, the ground shook with a distant thunder, shaking the resolve of even the most hardened soldiers. German reinforcements surged from the wood, a last-ditch effort to reclaim their lost ground. Fall back. Fall back," the Sullivan ordered, realizing that they had pushed too far, too fast. "Donovan, we need support," Sullivan shouted into his radio, desperately trying to reach his commanding officer amidst the chaos. "Hold your position. Reinforcements are on the way." Donovan's voice crackled back, filled with urgency. In the heart of the fray, Donovan spotted a familiar figure, a paratrooper whose face he recognized. "Get me a line to the airborne. We need air support now," he commanded, knowing that the skies could shift the momentum of battle. Sully's team held their ground, fighting off waves of German soldiers with grit and determination, but the numbers were overwhelming. The shadows of defeat began to creep in as they fortified their position against the onslaught. Then, out of the smoke and confusion, the roar of planes filled the air. One soldier shouted, pointing to the sky, and American bombers soared overhead, releasing their payloads with surgical precision. "Keep your heads down," Sullivan yelled, using the chaos to rally his men. "This is our chance." The bombs fell with devastating accuracy, creating a wave of panic among German ranks. Donovan seized the moment to push forward, joining his men in the fray. "Now, let us take it to them," he shouted, charging into the fray, embodying the very spirit of the American resolve. As the battle raged on, the tide was turning, but the war was far from over. Even as the Americans gained ground, the lingering threats of spies and betrayal loomed large in their minds. With each victory came the haunting realization that the enemy was still poised to strike back. And in the shadows, whispers of dissent and betrayal grew louder, threatening to unravel the very fabric of their unity. The fight for Normandy was a prelude to the larger confrontation that lay ahead, one that would challenge the resolve of nations. As darkness descended over the battlefield, the echoes of war whisper promises of more to come. The fate of Europe hung in the balance, and the secrets of American commandos were only beginning to unfold, leading to a confrontation that would forever alter the course of history. What lay ahead would reveal the true cost of war and the depths of human courage. The next chapter awaited, where the stakes would rise, and the shadows would deepen. The clash on the beaches of Normandy had reached a fever pitch, where bravery and desperation collided like the crashing waves against the shore. Donovan pressed forward, embodying the spirit of the American resolve as he rallied his men to exploit the chaos unleashed by the air support. The Germans, caught off guard by the aerial onslaught, faltered momentarily, giving Donovan the opening he desperately needed. "Let the sound of our victory echo through these sands," Donovan bellowed, his voice cutting through the cacophony of battle. Soldiers surged forward, adrenaline propelling them as they fought not just for territory, but for the liberation of a continent shackled in tyranny. But General Richter was far from finished. From his command center, he watched the unfolding chaos with a steely resolve, recognizing that this was a pivotal moment. "We cannot afford to falter," he barked at his officers. "We will not yield an inch of ground." His words were infused with urgency as he dispatched troops to fortify their defenses. Back on the beach, Sully's team stood firm against the oncoming German reinforcements. The initial euphoria of their advance was swiftly replaced by the grim reality of war. As bullets whizzed past, Sully felt the weight of leadership sink into him, a burden he couldn't shake. Each face of his men reminded him of the stakes: brothers, sons, fathers, all fighting for a brighter future. "Steady, stay sharp," Sully shouted, trying to rally his comrades as the German forces regrouped. He could see in their eyes that fear was creeping in, but he refused to let doubt take hold. "We've come too far to turn back now." He raised his rifle, signaling them to focus. As the enemy's advance pressed harder, Sully caught sight of a familiar face amid the chaos, a young private named Carter, whose resolve had always inspired those around him. But now, Carter's eyes were wide with fear, and Sully recognized the struggle within him. Sully shouted as he rushed over. "You've got this. Remember what we were fighting for." The private nodded, determination igniting in his eyes. "We will not let them take us down." Together, with renewed vigor, Sully and Carter moved back to their position, strategizing their next steps. "We need to flank them again," Sully said, glancing at the artillery that still threatened their beachhead. "If we can cut off their support, we might force a retreat." But as they prepared to enact their plan, a sudden explosion rocked the ground beneath them. Sully instinctively ducked, feeling the heat of the blast wash over him. More reinforcements, pushing hard against the Americans. The air was thick with smoke, and the cries of the wounded echoed like a grim symphony. "Get moving." Donovan's voice rang out, urging his men to regroup. He had spotted a narrow path leading to a less fortified section of the German defenses, and he knew that it could provide them with a crucial advantage. "We'll hit them from the sides, break their morale." As they moved, Donovan felt the weight of uncertainty. Yet he pushed it aside, channeling his instincts into action. His mind raced with calculations, weighing risks against potential rewards. This was not just about holding ground, it was about breaking the will of an enemy that had grown too confident. Meanwhile, in Berlin, General Richter received grim news. The Americans were making inroads, their tactics proving just as unpredictable as he had feared. "We must anticipate their every move," he shouted to his staff, his composure fraying. "If they breach our lines, it will be a disaster." His staff scrambled to devise a counter-strategy, but with each passing moment, Richter felt the tide turning against them. "We must mobilize our reserves. Prepare the counteroffensive." He knew that the Germans had to strike back quickly. The very essence of their military doctrine demanded decisive action. On the battlefield, Donovan's forces executed their plan with precision, taking the fight to the Germans in a furious push. Each squadron moved like a well-oiled machine, a testament to their training, their loyalty forged in the fires of conflict. The sounds of battle morphed into a brutal rhythm, punctuated by shouts and gunfire. But just as success seemed within reach, a sudden wave of German troops surged forward, overwhelming the Americans and forcing them back. "We're being flanked. Hold your ground." Sully shouted amid the chaos, and the air hummed with a mix of panic and determination. Suddenly, an officer approached Donovan, breathless from the intensity of the battle. "We have reports of a major German counterattack forming on our western flank." "Damn it," Donovan swore, quickly assessing the situation. "We need to reposition our forces." He glanced towards Sully's squad, recognizing the importance of their success. "We'll need everyone we have to reinforce that flanked." Sully, overhearing the conversation, felt the pulse of urgency pressing down on him. "We can hold forever," he shouted back, determination hardening his tone. "If we can disrupt the lines, we might give our forces the chance to regroup." As he made his way back to gather his men, Sully's thoughts raced. The battlefield was a cauldron of chaos, yet in the heart of it he felt a strange sense of clarity. This was about more than survival, it was about the fight for freedom, a fight that echoed through the ages. "Squad, listen up," Sully called, gathering his men. "We have to push back. It is time to show them the American spirit. We're not just here to hold the line, we're here to win." The squad nodded, adrenaline pumping through their veins. They had faced adversity before, but this time felt different. The spirit of those who had fought and fallen before them coursed through their hearts, a legacy igniting their will to overcome. Meanwhile, in Israel, Moshe watched the unfolding conflict in Europe with a heavy heart. The lessons of a Holocaust weighed heavily on his mind as he pondered the importance of strength and resilience. He knew that the world watched the unfolding events closely and that the future of their own fledgling state hinged on outcomes of battles like those at Normandy. Every skirmish, every battle, matters, Dan mused to his staff as they gathered around. "We cannot afford to underestimate the power of resolve. The world must see that we will stand strong against tyranny." Back on the battlefield, Donovan's forces pushed against the German counteroffensive with renewed intensity. The tide was shifting, but the struggle was far from over. As shells exploded around them, the sound of hope mingled with despair, and the fate of nations was still being decided in the smoke and chaos of war. "Move out, we're not done yet," Donovan shouted, refusing to let fear dictate their fate. As the sun dipped low, soldiers charged forward, the promise of victory mingling with the shadows of uncertainty. They fought not just for freedom, but to defy the darkness that threatened to engulf the world. The conflict raged on, and as the dawn of a new battle loomed, the whispers of espionage and betrayal lingered like ghosts in the wind. Each move became a step toward an uncertain future, where the lines between victory and defeat blurred. The stakes had never been higher, and as the shadows deepened, so too did the secrets of war. Would Donovan's unconventional tactics secure a hard-fought victory, or would the specter of betrayal unravel everything they had fought for? The answer lay just beyond the horizon, waiting to be revealed in the next chapter of this relentless saga. The turning tide of battle at Normandy had ignited an unquenchable fire within Donovan and his troops. Each soldier felt the weight of history upon their shoulders, the relentless assault of German forces becoming an echo of the fight for freedom that had begun long before them. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that flickered eerily over the battlefield, where the cries of the wounded mingled with the sounds of gunfire. In that moment, Donovan's voice cut through the chaos as he rallied his men for one last push. "We fight not just for today, but for every person who dreams of freedom, for those who will come after us. Move out." Amidst the advancing German counteroffensive, Sully's squad braced for the onslaught. The adrenaline coursing through their veins was a potent reminder of why they were there. "We push back hard," Sully shouted, his words a clarion call that ignited their spirits. "Remember what we were fighting for. Every inch we take is another step toward freedom." As they charged forward, their rifles blazing, the sight of their comrades fighting with equal fervor fueled their resolve. Sully caught sight of Carter again, who was now a whirlwind of energy. "Carter, keep your head down and flank left," he commanded, and without hesitation, Carter complied, moving swiftly through the rubble. At the same time, Donovan maneuvered his forces strategically. He recognized the need for unity among the disparate units on the ground. Donovan directed an adjacent commander. "If we can create a solid front, we'll break their will." The plan was set into motion, and Donovan coordinated the movements with precision. The men were reinvigorated by the prospect of a coordinated strike, the idea of a united front against the German lines empowering them. As the American forces pushed forward, the Germans began to falter, their resolve wavering under the sheer weight of the Allied assault. Meanwhile, in Berlin, General Richter felt the pressure mounting. Reports flooded in of the American advances, the intelligence network proving unreliable against the unpredictable nature of Donovan's tactics. "We need to cut them off," Richter shouted, frustration boiling over. He ordered a fresh wave of troops, desperate to stem the tide. "They're regaining ground. We need to hit back with everything we have." As the German reinforcements raced to the front lines, Sully and his squad continued their fierce resistance. Under a hail of gunfire, they reach the German artillery positions that threaten to break the Allied advance. We were almost there, just a little further. Sully urged, feeling the sheer determination of his men behind him. With a fierce push, they burst into the artillery encampment. Explosions rang out as grenades were thrown, and the sounds of battle echoed through the air. Sully commanded, and his team moved with urgency, dispatching the German soldiers guarding the artillery. As they fought, he could feel the tide shifting. Each victory brought another breath of hope, but the shadows of war still loomed heavily over them. Outside, Donovan's forces pressed forward, the coordinated maneuvers proven effective. As he led his men, he glanced over the battlefield to see the German troops retreating, their lines breaking under the relentless pressure of the Americans. "Keep going. We are breaking through. Do not let up now," he shouted, his voice rising above the din of battle. Just as the breakthrough seemed imminent, a sudden explosion erupted nearby, sending dust and debris flying. Sully instinctively ducked, shielding Carter, who had been nearby. He yelled, pushing through the chaos to regroup with his men. In the aftermath of the blast, the air thick with smoke, it became evident that the Germans were not finished yet. The remnants of their forces began to regroup, rallying under the command of their officers. Richter's determination had turned into desperation as he scrambled to reclaim control. "We will not surrender this ground," he bellowed, his anger fueling a fierce counterattack. "Fall back to the bunkers," a German officer shouted to his men, urging them on. "We will hold our ground at all costs." As they moved to fortify the defenses, Donovan realized that time was of the essence. "We must press the advantage. We cannot let them regroup," he urged, his voice a clarion call in the midst of the chaos. He moved swiftly, coordinating the next wave of attacks with impeccable timing, each step calculated to disrupt the enemy's resolve. Back in the artillery position, Sully's team had managed to silence the big guns, but the battle was far from won. "We need to regroup with Donovan," he shouted, leading the squad out from the wreckage. Just then, they stumbled upon a detachment of German soldiers attempting to flank them. "Ambushed," Sully yelled, taking cover. The ensuing firefight was brutal, with both sides battling fiercely for the upper hand. Sully felt the weight of each decision, each moment, understanding that their fight was not just against the enemy, but against the very notion of tyranny. "For everyone who can fight," he shouted, rallying his squad, their spirits rekindled by his passion. With grit and determination, they pushed forward, driving the Germans back. The thunderous sounds of battle began to shift in favor of the Americans as they regrouped with Donovan's forces, creating a united front. The momentum was palpable, and Donovan seized the moment. "We strike with everything we have. This is our time to take back freedom." As they surged forward into enemy lines, the cries of their fallen comrades echoed in their minds, a powerful reminder of the stakes involved. With every step, they fought not just for victory, but for the memory of those who had come before them and those who would fight for a brighter future. Even as the Germans pressed their counteroffensive, the tide was shifting. Amidst the chaos of battle, the Allies began to emerge victorious, reclaiming ground inch by inch. Donovan's strategic mind was in overdrive, adjusting plans as the enemy faltered. "We can do this, together," he shouted to his men, who fought with renewed vigor. As the sun began to rise, casting a golden hue over the battlefield, it illuminated the stark reality of the conflict, the price of freedom. Each soldier, each commander knew that the fight would continue beyond Normandy. It was a battle for the very soul of Europe. In the midst of the struggle, word reached Sully about the developments in Israel. "Dan is watching this closely," one of his men whispered. The significance weighed heavily on Sully, understanding that their fight would influence the future of nations. The burden of history lay upon them, but so did the promise of hope. Finally, with one last charge, Donovan's forces collided with the remnants of the German defense. "For freedom," they shouted in unison, their voices rising above the fray. With a final surge, they erupted through the German lines, a wave of determination and solidarity pushing back against the forces that sought to shackle them. As the dust began to settle, silence enveloped the battlefield. The German forces, battered and broken, retreated in a disorganized flight. Donovan's forces stood victorious, but the cost was steep. Around them lay the remnants of battle, friends and comrades, heroes who fought bravely for a cause greater than themselves. In the aftermath, as the sun rose higher, illuminating the scars of war, Donovan gathered his men. "We have faced darkness and emerged into the light," he declared, his voice filled with emotion. "We will carry their legacy forward." As the Allied forces regrouped, preparing for the next phase of the war, Sully felt a weight lift from his shoulders. They had fought bravely and achieved a significant victory, not just at Normandy, but in the broader struggle against oppression. Yet, even as they celebrated their achievements, the shadows of betrayal and espionage remained looming echoes of a war that was far from over. The battle for Europe would continue, but the spirit of resilience, embodied by Donovan and his men, would serve as a beacon of hope. The fight for freedom was a relentless one, and the lessons learned at Normandy would ripple through time, forging a path toward a world where the echoes of tyranny would never again take root. As they looked toward the horizon, they knew their journey had just begun. The commitment to defend freedom would shape their destinies and the future of nations, a promise forged in the fires of war. Together, they stood united, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, for the fight against oppression would always be worth it, an eternal battle for justice, dignity, and humanity.